Hello, welcome back. This is chapter 3rd, two stories about flying, and today I'm going to discuss story number 2, The Black Aeroplane, written by Frederick Forsyth. The moon was coming up in the east behind me, and the stars were shining in the clear sky above me. So, it was a night setup. The author was flying back from France to England. He was returning to his home, that is England. It was night flight, night setup, and how the surrounding described. So the story begins with the setup. The setup around the author as he was making his journey back to his home. So the moon was coming up in the east. Moon was emerging in the east behind me, but as he was flying towards west, so the moon was appearing behind him, emerging behind him. And the stars were shining in the clear sky above me, and the stars were shining above him, because it's a cockpit from there, since it's a glass cockpit, so from there everything is visible. He could see things above, and the stars were all shining in the clear sky. The sky was pretty much clear, and behind him the moon was emerging, the moon was coming up. So this is the setup here. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I was happy to be alone, high up above the sleeping countryside. So there was no trace of a cloud. Not a single cloud was there in the sky. He was happy to be alone, high up above the sleeping countryside, and he was flying alone. He was going with his flight, with his plane alone. He was all alone, and he was happy, quite happy, because everything was quite normal and quite comfortable for him, and he was flying above the sleeping countryside. That is, the rural setup was there under him, the rural setup was there. That is, the villages, there was spread of countryside, village area, and not city was at the side. He was passing through a countryside, village area, and he was enjoying his flight. I was flying my old Dakota airplane over France back to England, and he was flying his old Dakota airplane. The name of the fighter plane was Dakota airplane, or here it is, say Dakota airplane, as is described in this story. And he started his flight. He took off from France and was returning to England, as described here. I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family, and he was just dreaming of his holiday, holiday that he was going to get after touching down, after he returned to his base, and from there he would get his holiday, since maybe that he was on duty to France, and returning from there he was supposed to get some holiday. So was dreaming of the holiday and the time that he would be able to spend with his family together. I looked at my watch, 1:30 in the morning. Then he looked at his watch. It showed 1:30 in the morning. That is, it was still light, dark, but since it was the next day, scientifically, or say in some other ways, geographically, scientifically, or by the modern ways, modern methods, and modern systems. So he says 1:30 in the morning. I should call Paris Control soon, I thought, as I looked down past the nose of the airplane. I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. So he was just flying over on the countryside, and then he noticed the lights of city lights was seen from the say the tip of the nose of the airplane. That is, just past the nose of the airplane, he could see the lights of the city. And there he realized that he should now call the control room, that is the Paris control room, and ask for the instruction, ask for the navigational channels and navigational routes. I switched on the radio and said, Paris Control, Dakota DS-088 here. Okay, then he switched on the radio. Radio means the communication system. So he switched on the communication system and then first introduced himself, saying that saying Paris Control, just inquiring if it was Paris Control. Paris Control, Dakota DS-088 here. He was informing, giving his introduction that he was, or it was DS-088, Dakota DS-088. That is, Dakota DS-088 was making this call to the Paris control room. Can you hear me? He asked. I'm on my way to England. Over. And then he said, can you hear me? I'm on my way to England. That I am going back to England. And by saying this, he said, over. Over. This is a protocol, a system of radio communication by which the one who is communicating, or both the parties communicating, have to say over as his information or things from his side gets over. When the person has nothing more to say, he has to say over, so that the other becomes clear that there is nothing more to be received from the other side. So he said, it's over, I'm returning to England. The voice from the radio answered me immediately, DS-088, I can hear you. You ought to turn 12 degrees west now. DS-088, over. Then there came the instruction from the control room informing DS-088 to take a turn 12 degrees west. That is, he was asked to take a turn to 12 degrees west from his position, from his current position. I checked the map and the compass, switched over to my second and the last full tank, and turned the Dakota 12 degrees west towards England. And then he checked few of the things, few of the control panels, systems on the control panel. That is, it checked the map, checked the compass, and then as the full tank, the primary full tank was almost over, so he switched on to the second full tank, and then took a turn to 12 degrees west towards England. I'll be in time for breakfast, I thought. A good big English breakfast. Everything was going well. It was an easy flight, and then he just thought of the breakfast he was going to get, because he was sure that he would be touching down by the early morning hours, that is, say 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So he would be right there for the breakfast, and then he thought of the good big English breakfast, that the big or the nice breakfast that he was going to get at home. It was a nice flight. Everything was easy and quite fine. So he was enjoying the flight. Paris was about 150 kilometers behind me when I saw the clouds. Now, suddenly the clouds appeared. It took the turn 12 degrees west, and then hardly he moved a few hundred, say, kilometers, or say a few kilometers in that way. Then came the black clouds, appeared black clouds, and when he looked back, Paris was 150 kilometers behind him. The clouds, okay, storm clouds. It was not ordinary clouds, not white clouds, but storm clouds, dark, thick and dark clouds. They were huge. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky, and they appeared to be like say black mountain, huge black mountain standing in front of him across the sky. That is crossing the sky. That is parallel or in front of him, say. So that was the situation. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to the north or south. So he then analyzed the situation. He made his calculations, and he realized that he could neither go above the clouds, that is going very high up and escaping the clouds from above. He couldn't do that. He had not that option. He didn't have that choice. And then the other choice, that is going either from the right side or the left side of the cloud, even that was not a possibility, because he didn't have enough of the fuel to do so. I ought to go back to Paris, I thought, but I wanted to get home. I wanted that breakfast. Now he thought that the best option before him was to return to Paris. That was the best option before him. But then the next thought came, that was about the breakfast, and then the spending holiday with the family, and that took control of his brain, of his heart, and he could not return to Paris. Say that that grabbed his attention, that he should be back to home for the breakfast and for the holidays with the family. I'll take the risk, I thought, and flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. He said, no, I must return to my home, and so he said, I'll take the risk. He decided to take the risk and entering the cloud, decided to enter the cloud, go inside the cloud. I thought, but I wanted to, okay, so I thought, and flew that old Dakota straight into the cloud, a storm, and then he moved the airplane straight into the storm. Inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black. It was impossible to see anything outside the airplane. So he was now inside the clouds, and suddenly everything turned dark, turned black. It was impossible to see anything outside the airplane. Nothing was visible. Everything was dark. Everything was black. The old airplane jumped and twisted in the air. The old airplane, it was old one, so the old airplane just jumped and twisted, turned in the air. Oh, I couldn't believe my eyes. The compass was turning round and round and round. It was dead. So, as he decided to enter the cloud, take the risk and enter the cloud, suddenly he noticed that all the instruments on the panel of the cockpit uh, started malfunctioning. First of all, the compass he noticed the compass and the hands of the compass were going round and round and round. That is, it was not functioning at all. That was dead. That was malfunctioning. That was dead. It would not work. That is, start functioning then. The other instruments were suddenly dead too. I tried the radio. Okay, so after that he checked the other instruments, and those were dead too. That is, even other instruments stopped functioning. I tried the radio, and then he thought of the radio and thought of communicating the thing to the control tower, to the control room. So he tried the radio. Paris control, can you hear me? So he was desperately trying to communicate with the control room there at Paris. So just asking if it was Paris control, and if they people sitting there could hear him. There was no answer. The radio was dead too. Even the radio was dead. Even there was no response from the radio coming from no response coming from the other side of the radio. That means even the radio was dead. I had no radio, no compass, and I could not see where I was. I was lost in the storm, so no instrument was functioning, no radio communication there, compass wasn't working, other instruments also stopped functioning, so he was now lost in this storm because he had no idea what exactly was his location, where he was. Then, in the black clouds quite near me, I saw another aeroplane, and then suddenly he noticed one more aeroplane. There is another aeroplane appearing in front of him. That is, just next to him there appeared another aeroplane there in the clouds. I saw another airplane. It had no lights on its wings, but I could see it flying next to me through the storm. And what was strange about this airplane, or that though it was flying just next to him, just beside him only, but strangely there were no lights on the wings of this airplane. The lights are very necessary part of the airplane, because it helps in proper detection of the airplane and avoids accident mid-air. So it was missing, but he could see the plane flying just next to him. I could see the pilot's face turned towards me, and he now noticed that the pilot's face was turned towards him. He was also looking at the author and his plane. I was very glad to see another person. He lifted one hand and waved. "Follow me," he was saying, "follow me." Okay, so what he noticed next, that he was waving his hand and was beckoning to him, was giving him some advice, some instructions. He was telling him to follow him repeatedly. He was repeatedly saying, "Please follow me." And as author found another plane there, and that kind of gloomy situation, he was happy. There was some kind of smile on his face, or say he was just relaxed now to find another airplane there in that situation, that gloomy situation. He knows that I am lost, I thought. He's trying to help me. And since he was beckoning him, he was just showing him, instructing him to follow him and to follow him from behind or to follow him. So the author just made his calculation. He thought that perhaps he had got good idea that he was lost. And so he was trying to help him. He turned his airplane slowly to the north in front of my Dakota so that it would be easier for me to follow him. So after that, he turned his airplane slowly to the north. Otto was following him from behind, and as he was leading him, guiding him through that storm, so he just now took a slow turn towards left, or say towards north, and so it would be easier for him to follow, that is, and it made him very easier to follow him as he was leading him from the front. I was very happy to go behind this strange airplane like an obedient child, and the author was pleased. He was happy to follow him from behind, the other plane taking the lead. He was following him from behind. He was happy, he was contented, and he was following him just like an obedient child follows an elder in a difficult situation. After half an hour, the strange black airplane was still there in front of me in the clouds. And after half an hour's journey through the black clouds, the airplane was still flying in front of him. Now, there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's last tank to fly for 5 or 10 minutes more. Now, what he realized, what he noticed, he looked at the console, the flight console, and there he found that there was only 5 to 10 minutes of fuel left in his second tank. So he got now nervous, he got worried now, he got tensed. I was starting to feel frightened again. He got nervous now, he got frightened again. But then it started to go down, and I followed through the storm, and then suddenly, as he thought that, as he was getting worried about the situation, because only 5 to 10 minutes fuel was left, so he found that the airplane flying in front of him suddenly started to go down, and I followed him through the storm. Suddenly, I came out of the clouds and saw 2 long straight lines of lights in front of me. Suddenly, all of a sudden, without coming to know of it that he would be out of it so instantly, because it was almost half hour's journey through the black cloud, and then suddenly it was a drop in the altitude, and he emerged out of it. He came out of it, and all that happened suddenly. And saw, when he came out of it, he saw 2 long straight lines of light in front of him. That is, coming out of it, and right in front of him were 2 straight lines of lights, and these 2 straight lines of light indicated that meant something he was very much familiar with. It was a runway. That was a runway. An airport was at his side. That is, it was airport, and he was now viewing it. He could now see it. That is, he was now safe. I was safe. He took a deep sigh of relief and said, well, thank God I'm safe. I turned. Then, when he was at ease, he got, some kind of comfort, relief that he was safe. His focus shifted to the other plane that was flying along with him, or that was leading him. So he turned to look for the friend. That is, I turned to look for my friend in the black airplane. He turned to look for the friend who was flying the other plane, black airplane. But the sky was empty. Sky was empty. The plane was suddenly gone. That disappeared. That went out of his sight suddenly, all of a sudden. And the sky was empty. There was nothing there at all. On the black airplane was gone. I could not see it anywhere, and it was gone. He looked all around him, all about him, and the plane was gone. It was not outside. I landed and was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the control tower, and as he landed, as he touched down and stationed his plane near the control tower, he came out of the cockpit and was pleased, not sorry at all to leave it. He was very much pleased to go, because he was curious, not disappointed at all, because he could not say, obviously a sense was there in mind that he couldn't say thanks to him. A little disappointment was there, but more than disappointment, there was a curiosity in the mind to know as who was that, and so was very much pleased to move away from the airplane right after coming out of the cockpit and coming down of the plane. I went and asked a woman in the control center where I was and who the other pilot was, and he went inside, went into the control center, and there a female staff was there sitting, was performing her duty, was on duty, and he asked about his location. That is, at the point when he entered the cloud, the black mountain of cloud, he wanted to know that location, exact location where he entered the cloud. And also he was also interested to know as who the other pilot was. That is, he wanted to know his name. I wanted to say thank you, because he wanted to say thank you. It was very easy to find out, to know as who was flying the other airplane, because they have all the data as who flies what airplane. Like it was DS Dakota, DS088 Dakota, so the operator knows it exactly as who is flying the plane. So in that way, she could tell about the other pilot, and he wanted to know the name, because he wanted to say thank you to him. He wanted to express his gratitude towards him. She looked at me very strangely and then laughed. She gave a very weird look. She presented a very strange kind of look to the author, and then suddenly burst out in laughter. So started to laugh. Another airplane? Up there in this storm? No other airplane were flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. She was laughing as she was saying, another airplane. Up there in this storm, you speak of another airplane. So there was no other airplane flying tonight. Yours was the only airplane that was visible on the radar. There was no second airplane on the radar. So, who helped me to arrive there safely without a compass or a radio or without any more fuel in my tanks? So now, being baffled, being puzzled, he asked these questions to himself as who helped him reach there safely first when no instrument was working, when compass wasn't working, radio wasn't working, other instruments were not working, when the fool was almost exhausted. In such a situation, who came and helped me come out of that dangerous kind of situation and help me come out safely? Who was the pilot on this strange black airplane flying in the storm without lights? Then he asked again to himself as who was the pilot of that strange black airplane flying in the storm without lights. Who was that? Flying without lights, because by aviation norms, one cannot fly a plane without lights on the wings, and he was flying it without lights. So the question came to his mind, and it was something like a mystery for him. So this is all. The chapter is over, and with this, second story also comes to an end. So this is all from here. Thank you.